Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to After Hours Conversations for Music Educators. We're thrilled that you're joining us tonight, but before we get started, I've just got a couple of housekeeping items for everybody. First off, as a quick reminder, if you've got any questions that you want to ask of our guests tonight, please be sure that you're utilizing that Q&A box on the bottom of your screen, the question and answer. That's what I'm going to be keeping my eye on rather than the chat feature during tonight's conversation. So again, if you've got any questions, use that Q&A box for us. Tonight actually wraps up our summer after hours series. It's hard to believe this has been our 18th conversation. I think when we started this in March, we thought this was just going to be like a 2 or 3 week thing and we'd be back in it. And man, we were just wrong about that. Here we are. This is number 18. We're going to take a brief hiatus, but this is not goodbye. We are just going to get everybody settled back into the new school year, and then we'll fire it back up in October and look forward to some conversations that we have lined up then. And as a quick reminder, if you're looking for a recording of this conversation or any of our previous conversations, they can be found on your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to hit that subscribe if you're on Apple, if you're on Google, Spotify, whatever it is. Please be sure to hit that subscribe. The full name is After Hours Conversations for Music Educators. And you can also visit our website at amromusic.com/after hours. And then lastly, Amro Music, the company I work for, has graciously agreed to continue supporting the After Hours podcast by covering our webinar services and the production expenses associated with the podcast. So what that means is if you're enjoying the webinar or the podcast and would like to support After Hours, you may do so by purchasing your classroom supplies, books, and accessories from Amro Music by contacting our Director Services team. You can reach the two great guys in that office, Seth and Alan, by emailing them, Seth at Amro Music and Alan at amromusic.com. So that's enough from me. Let's meet our guest this evening, Mr. Scott Rush. Scott, good evening.
Hey, I'm so glad to be with you guys this evening.
We're honored that you're joining us. I really appreciate a few moments of your time. I know you're very busy. Scott, of course, a lot of people now know you as this author that's written this really successful and quickly growing book series, but you've got a rich background as a music educator. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I went to New England Conservatory of Music in Boston for my master's degree, and I studied with Frank Battisti and had a degree in horn performance, studied with Charles Kavalowski, who's the principal horn player of the Boston Symphony. And I was in the trenches as a band director for 22 years. Most of those years were at Wando High School. I was at Wando High School for 15 years in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. The last 6 years, my last 6 years, I was director of fine and performing arts in a school district in South Carolina. And I've been writing for GIA since 2006.
That's fabulous. Now, I have to brag on you a little bit. While you were the director there of the high school program in Wando, it was not just a small casual program. I went and saw some videos, and you all had a tremendous amount of success during the time that you were there.
It was 15 amazing years of my life. We had the opportunity to really build a program, but it was just fantastic young people. And we had the opportunity to play at the Midwest Clinic in 2007. And we went to Grand Nationals in marching band twice and made finals both times and averaged about 65 to 70 students in all state band every year. It was just a lot of things that came together to make for a good thing. Great feeder programs, great principal, supportive parents. It was really I loved every second of it.
That's great. And now making a big influence, of course, with these books that we see, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So there was this period of time, I'm sure, where you transitioned kind of from educator, administrator to author. So tell me a little bit about how this book series came to be. And for those that may not be utilizing it currently, let's start with your first book, which I believe you said was the high school book, and kind of take us through what that looked like.
Well, the very first book that we did in the entire series was Habits of Successful Band Director.
Band Director, that's right. Thank you.
And that particular book, Tim Lotzenheiser, he and I were he was doing a student leadership workshop at Wando High School, And I picked him up at the airport, and we were actually talking about student teachers because I had a student teacher and he was observing student teachers. And he said, "You should write a book." Uh, and just being Tim, I thought he was being nice, and I didn't think anything more about it. And about 6 months later, I saw him again, and he said, "Hey, where's the manuscript for that book?" And I said, "Are you serious?" He said, "Yeah, I'm serious. You should write this book." And so that's how the very first book came about, Habits of a Successful Band Director. And then as we went through this, we started writing method books. And the first method book that we wrote was Habits of a Successful Musician. And we call that our high school book. It's a blue book. And that actually evolved from work that we did at Wando High School. All band directors had those moments where at the beginning of the school year, they put things in their folders, and, they wanted to have chorales, and they wanted to have all these, rhythm curriculum and all these things. Well, we were using certain things at Wando, and I thought, why do I keep just creating these things? Let's create a method book that we can share with everybody. And so we created that book with the work we were doing at Wando. The whole idea with really the whole series is everything's under one roof. You have warm-up curriculum, you have lip slurs, you have chorales, you have 2 sections of sight reading, you have just, several things all under one roof. And then after we had some success with that book, we wrote a book called Habits of a Successful Middle School Musician. There are over 3,000 programs using both of those books, the blue book, over 3,000, and the yellow book, over 3,000 programs using those books in their programs. And the middle school book was patterned after work that Jeff Scott, who's one of our feeders, was one of our feeders at Wando, that he did with his middle school. And Jeff is also one of the writers of our newest book, which is Habits of a Successful Beginner Band Musician. So we're really, really excited about the series. And, one of the great things about how it ended up working out is we wrote the series in reverse. So with this beginner band method book, we always knew where we were prepping towards, So there's 13 books in the series now. Some of them are method books, and some of them are what we call how-to books for teachers.
That's great. And it spans outside of just the band. Do I understand that correctly? We've got something for string and orchestra as well.
Yes. So we have strings and choir. Our lead writer for strings is Chris Selby. He is a fantastic teacher. He and I wrote several books together. And then our lead teacher for choral is Eric Wilkinson, who's also just an amazing high school chorus teacher. So
that's great. That's great. So what really differentiates this book and how it presents the materials differently from some of the other books that might be available for middle school or high school teachers?
When we first started, Jeff and I really got together. He did about 3 pages of notes, and I did about 3 pages of notes, and then we compared our notes, and some of the things, we said the same things. But there were certain things that we knew that we wanted to put in this book. And some things were things that weren't being done in other books, or that we decided that we wanted to do them a little bit differently than other method books. So I'll go through several things that make this book somewhat unique, or we've done it a little bit differently. The first thing is we have teacher tips for every exercise. So down at the bottom of the exercise in the conductor's edition, we have teacher tips. And we really tried to get in there and give teachers some good nuts and bolts teaching strategies. And Jeff was responsible for that, along with, he has 32 years experience as a middle school band director. Marguerite Wilder has 28 years of experience as a middle school band director. Kevin Boyle's on our team. He has 15 years as a middle school band director. And we had fantastic field testers that field tested the books. And we just took in teacher tips, throughout the process, and we put them down at the bottom of the page. Another thing we did, and I'll kind of jump around here a little bit because they're just various things. Another thing we did was when Jeff and I did that original document, we said, middle school kids, they kind of learn to play in B flat, and they don't leave the key of B flat, the way they need to. And so we decided that when we introduced the B flat pentascale, the first 5 notes, that we would shortly follow that with doing the C pentascale. We were really trying to address a need so that they wouldn't, they wouldn't be in the B flat, E flat, A flat club. We had a kind of a running joke that, trombone players don't know what second and fifth position is because they've just never used it before. So,
yeah, that was me. Yeah, the guilty is charged.
Yeah. So, so the way we just prep that really teaches kids how to read key signatures and how to read accidentals and things like that. We also have a system, and we can talk about this part later if you want, but a system for how you spend the first weeks of school before you even play the instrument. So we have that in there. We also have solfege instruction. And the solfege instruction, we have some at the beginning of the book. I can show that to you later, but it's also built into the teacher tips throughout the book, and the teachers can use it how they want to. In other words, some teachers may go, I really don't want to teach solfege. That's fine. It's not overbearing in this book, but if you want to, we give you some little reminders along the way. We also, if there's a first time challenge in the book, like I'll give you an example of one. Let's say that it's an accidental coming back in the measure. And so let's say, beat 1 has an F sharp, and then beat 4, it comes back in the measure. We put a green shaded box around any first time challenges in the book. We don't tell the students what that challenge is, but they know if it's a green shaded box that they better be looking out for something. And we don't keep repeating that over and over in the book, but it was important to us to just point those out to students. Another thing that we have in all of our habits books, and there's a story behind it. I won't give you the long version of the story, but the short version of the story is that we found that when we wrote rhythms, like a rhythm chart, followed by the same rhythm and pitches, that's where the epiphany moment happened. And so we have those all throughout the book. We also have left and right indicators for like clarinets and bass clarinets, which side of the instrument, those pinkies can get interesting sometimes. So we have some indicators for that. We have a game and something called the enharmonic ladder, because we think it's really important early to teach students what enharmonic notes are and how to use them. We have lots of supplemental materials on our Habits Universal, which I think we're going to look at a little bit later. We've addressed for oboe the F dilemma. So I can tell you as a teacher, I taught middle school for 3 years, and my biggest challenges were oboe and bassoon. And so for oboe, we put in the left, right, and forked Fs, and we labeled each one of them. So the student not only knows, but we put it in the teacher tips for when do you use the left, right, or forked F, which one's the right one to use. We've also have alternate fingerings in the book that when they use it chromatically, we have a V in the book that shows a kind of a chromatic fingering indicator. I told you bassoon was a challenge for me. We have markings for flicking on bassoon, the top A and then B flat, B, C, and D. The proper way to play those notes on bassoon is flicking. So we do a little explanation for what that means, and we have a little green shaded thing on the C key for them to know how to do that. And the other thing we have that's a little bit unique that I like is we start clarinets on after exercise 27 in the book. We start them on clarinets only pages. And from exercise 27 to exercise 73 in the book, the clarinets work kind of independently on their own. And the teacher can do it in front of a full class. During COVID-19, they could do it with just the clarinets, or they could do it with full band if they wanted to, because we have the full band accompaniment on Habits Universal. And so, because we believe that clarinets need a long time to learn how to go over the break. So those are just some things that we have in the book that are kind of unique to the book. And then there's some, kind of typical things that you would see as well.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, you all listed all of the challenges almost by instrument
Mm-hmm.
across the classroom and figured out a way to address them as early as possible so that you can form those good habits early, which I recognize kind of is in the name there, habits of a successful musician. But you all did your absolute best to address them head on, rather than just kind of deferring until high school band or advanced band or whatever it is. And you just went ahead and tackled them.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes when people hear that, they think, oh, well, that's kind of advanced. But you know, you have to keep in mind that not only do we try to duplicate what Jeff does, his middle school is Cario Middle School in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, but our field testers. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, we just made a conscious decision. You know, for instance, when we teach trumpets D, we're going to teach them to kick out. And so there are just certain things that, you know, we put in the book that we've been teaching and our team has been teaching for years and years and years and years that we know work. So yeah,
That's
you know,
great.
we just jumped in there and tackled them. And the other part of it is that, you know, it's not just technique and skill, but it's artistry and musicianship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So are these meant to be chronological, starting with the beginning band book, or some of them methods and some of them supplemental, or how does a teacher utilize these in the classroom as a
Well,
series?
yeah, so the beginner book, I have two thoughts on that. I was trying to decide which direction I want to go. So the beginner book, you know, is a true beginner band method book. It introduces, you know, notes and has fingering charts in the back. And we've got tons of supplemental stuff that, you know, you and I can look at in just a minute. But one of the things that's unique to the entire series is something that we teach in our how-to books called the components of playing. So the components of playing are things like timing, tuning, tone, technique, balance, blend, articulation, dynamics, phrasing, musicianship, accuracy, clarity, precision, just things that we're responsible for teaching. And those things kind of permeate our series. And we feel like that teachers, you know, it's one thing, I do something with teachers called the teaching inventory database. And the teaching inventory database are basically two columns on like an Excel spreadsheet, and the left column is what to teach. So it could be those things that I just mentioned. And then the right-hand column is how to teach it. And so teachers have to have teaching strategies, but our job is also to give them a resource to allow them to utilize those teaching strategies. And so what we've done in these method books is we've given them a lot of resources, starting with those teacher tips, to say, you know, we want your students to have an epiphany moment every single day. And in addition to the teacher tips, we have a purpose statement at the bottom of every exercise that says, this is why this exercise was put in the book, and these are the things that you should be working on. I have a little, I don't know, theory, I guess, that I say to teachers that I work with, and it's, if somebody kidnaps a student out of your class and takes them out in the hall and says, you know, what did you learn in band today? The student should be able to go boom, boom, boom. These are the things we learned in band today. Well, you know, sometimes as teachers, we just get caught in, you know, the routine, I guess is the best way to say it. What this book does is it gives teachers tools, and it puts tools in their toolbox so that students can easily answer, this is what we learned in band today.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure for a young educator, what valuable insight to be able to connect those dots for to have that teed up to connect those dots for their students.
Yeah,
so I'm
absolutely.
Sure that's really powerful.
Young teachers and veteran teachers.
Yeah, you know? That's great. So let's talk a little bit about the online component. Ton of conversation right now about hybrid learning online. And let's just kick us off. What are some of the online resources that are available with this book and series?
All right, well, let me actually share my screen, and I can actually probably do that easier, answer that question. So if the people who are with us after we finish the podcast, if you want to go to habitsuniversal.com, this is what it looks like. And I'll take you through some of the things here. I'll tell you what, we'll start with videos. So there are two things on videos here. There's one that says video exercises, And on this, and I'll just click on it so you can see how it works. When a student purchases the book, Habits of a Successful Beginner Band Musician, there's an access code. And they'll put the access code after they click on here. They'll put the access code in, and they will have access to every exercise in the book played by a coach on video. And I can show you kind of what that looks like. And we'll look at that in just a minute. The other part of this is we have startup clinics for each instrument. And what I mean by startup clinics is, somebody introduces their instrument, and then they literally start with how to put the instrument together, how to make the first sounds, how to tongue on the instrument, all those things. So like, I'll give you an example. We can look at this. And Nick, let me know if there's an issue with hearing the sound. If it is, I can go back and click on that box. Okay. But this is the introduction for the euphonium clinic.
Hi, my name is Dr. Irving Ray, and I will be your euphonium coach for Habits for a Successful Beginner Band Musician. For starters, you've chosen the most beautiful sounding instrument out of all the woodwind and brass instruments. As proof, if you translate the word euphonium from Greek to English, that's the definition you find: beautiful sounding. And I personally love to play the euphonium for that exact reason. Every time I play for someone who's never heard what a euphonium sounds like, the reaction I always get is, wow, what a gorgeous tone.
So all your euphonium players after the first year will sound just like Irving Ray in the United States Army Band Pershing Zone. They'll all sound just like that after 1 year of instruction. So the other videos, like I said, are just on literally starting with this is how you put the instrument together. And students can not only keep going back to those videos to learn, how do I tongue on my instrument, or instrument care and maintenance. I mean, there's all kinds of things. But the other thing is, they always, anytime they're working on an exercise, they can go click under exercises and watch the teacher, play that. The other thing we have are accompaniment tracks. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to show you how this works. So they have access to the teacher's video. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to share it again. All right. This will give you a little explanation of the accompaniment tracks and how it works.
Here's a coach's video, which is an example of a traditional song introduced in the book. Here's the same exercise with a spectacular background accompaniment. Even if students are at the beginning of the learning process and are only playing one note, they can have fun performing with the background accompaniment.
Every student should take a bow after that one, by the way.
In addition to individual mallet and battery videos for percussion, there are several videos that show examples of multi-percussion performance. We made a concerted effort throughout the book to provide some of the best-known classical melodies so that students can be exposed to wonderful literature from the start. We have songs that tug at your heart and teach expression, artistry, and musicianship.
So let me go back and show you where we are here. So in addition, so all the background accompaniments are here. We have tons of resources. And we'll talk about this in a little bit too, but the first 24 pages of the conductor's edition is just a lot of instruction that you can do prior to starting with them on instruments. And so we have all these supplemental pages, including rhythm charts. So there are 20 supplemental rhythm charts that you can pace however you want to. This will just give you an example of what a rhythm chart would look like. You can do them left to right, you can do them top to bottom, you can do them however you want to do that. There are some visual things here that are in the first 24 pages that you can use, like if you wanted to use it online or use it on your interactive board. Well, I can just show you this. You have to download it, but I can still open it for you. It's just a graphic. It looks like this. So all the graphics that are in the first 24 pages, you can actually access online. Let's see. We have drones available. So if you want to use drones with your students at the beginning of class or whatever, they're here that you can use. Some people might say, I can't afford a Yamaha Harmony keyboard, Yamaha Harmony Director right now. So there's a solution for you. We have additional supplemental clarinet going over the register, going over the break exercises. And those are there. We have a diagram of the first 5 notes for each instrument that you can use at the beginning. This could also be used with online learning, where we just show the first 5 notes, and there's the solfege there. We have that for every instrument. Let's see. We have supplemental solfege exercises that looks like this. You would need to use these after you use the ones at the beginning of the book. These are supplemental exercises. And then we also give you some songs out of the book that if you want to teach the songs to your students and teach them to use solfege, we give you some introductory ones. And we're going to be adding some to this list as we go. So if they want to sing solfege, that's there. And all this is free. We have Masters the Alphabet game. You should try this with your students. They have to go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, G, F, E, D, C, B, A, and then go to B, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and go back the other direction. It's a fun game to play with the students. And then we have identifying common hand position and posture problems in beginners. And there's a whole list, every instrument, all the way down to percussion that we have there. And then we have some other things. They're going to be right here. There's going to be duets, 15 duets that will be put in there. The other thing I want to mention, and we could jump ahead to the actually online format if you want, but right up here where it says Habits Universal Interactive, this is not quite ready to go. Matter of fact, it should be ready to go tomorrow. But this is powered by Music First. Right now, if you just click on it, it takes you to Music First, but it's going to look different tomorrow. And the online piece is really pretty cool. It's video in video. I say it's like Sight Reading Factory Mary's Flipgrid. It's video in video. Teachers can make assignments for the method book, one click to make an assignment for the whole class. The student goes in and make a video of themselves playing. The background accompaniments are there if they want to see them. The audio are the coaches, the teachers, so that if they click on their instrument, they can hear the audio of the teacher just like we saw in the video just a second ago. And then they can send the video to the teacher, and they get feedback immediately on right notes, rhythms, and duration and timing. And they get a grade that pops up on the screen. When they get that grade, the teacher literally, it goes into the back-end grade book, and the teacher literally can hit export and then import in whatever their program is. The program could be Canvas, it could be Schoology, it could be PowerSchool, it could be Edmodo, doesn't matter. 2 clicks, and it automatically goes directly into the grade book. It will save teachers tons of time. So that piece is, we call that Habits Universal Interactive. And that's the, and it's got a few more bells and whistles too, but it would literally take us an hour to go through the whole platform. We're going to put together, we're going to probably start tomorrow. We're going to put together a tutorial that we'll release so that teachers can see how the Habits Universal Interactive works. And they can go to habitsuniversal.com as soon as that gets up. And like I said, I think it'll pop up tomorrow. We did some beta testing today, and we had a little glitch about that one click for the assignment for the teacher. And so we were like, we need to get that worked out. So in the morning, we're going to do some more beta testing on it to make sure that it works. It's supposed to be fixed overnight. And then we should be ready to launch that piece. So that's Habits Online Universal Interactive.
That's very exciting. I'm sure that's been a huge undertaking, and that'll be a huge resource here as we approach this, for particularly those
COVID-19. Yep.
Yes, that right now more than ever. So, well, in addition to the interactive, do you have any thoughts or suggestions on how to position or best utilize this book for those that might be in a strictly online format?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things. So let me actually share my screen again. So we were talking about the first 24 pages. And the first 24 pages of the book, of the conductor's edition I'm talking about, have rhythm vocabulary that starts very basic. And I really wish we had time for me to take you through this blow by blow, because here again, I can take about an hour and a half to go through this, but I'll just give you a quick overview. So we have rhythm vocabulary, and when Jeff starts his instruction, at Curio Middle School every year. He starts with rhythm vocabulary. I mean, on day one. And there's a whole system that he uses. In this book, we don't promote a particular counting system. We just say the teacher needs to be passionate about whatever their counting system is. So we have rhythm vocabulary, and what you do is you do a line or two, depending on what it says, and then you jump to the supplemental rhythm chart on habitsuniversal.com. And so you could take 3 weeks to do this, or you could take 18 weeks to do this. Depends on how you want to pace it. But there's the rhythm vocabulary, and then we give and then there's some solfege. And remember I said that you need to do the basic solfege first before you jump into the supplemental solfege, which is on Habits Universal. One of the great things about Habits Universal is we'll keep putting things up there that teachers need. So it's a living, breathing kind of resource. We'll keep adding things in there. But we literally take them through the first days of instruction, and we go through various sequences. So sequence 1 will give you a rhythm vocabulary. It'll explain some things. As I showed you earlier, we have these graphics on Habits Universal that you can use online with students. Then we also give you a solfege example for sequence 1 and what they need to do and how they need to do it. Then we go to sequence number 2, and they do the rhythm chart. Then they do the supplemental rhythm charts. Then they go the solfege, and then they do sequence 3. And as they go through this, there are various things that we cover. There are various definitions that we cover. We teach them what ties mean pretty early in this process. Remember, they haven't played their instruments yet. These are just all things prior to playing the instruments. Then there's some other little things that we do where, like I said, it says here, as you move through into sequence 7, there are 2 things that you may like to do. Since students just learn how to tie a half note and a quarter note together, you may choose to go ahead and teach the dotted half note. And we also give them an assignment, if they want to use it, to do index cards with their students, where they do index cards and they write the note on the front of the note card. And you can take those up, or you can have them submit them to you. There's all kinds of ways they can do that. And then later you'll have them write the fingerings on the back. And remember, we gave you those charts in Habits Universal for the first 5 notes. So you use that in conjunction with this. We also give some other little basic theory kind of examples to do. We tie in that Masters of the Alphabet game that you saw earlier. Anyway, and then in sequence 8, we actually start teaching them what time signatures are. So all this to say, like I said, I could spend a lot of time on this. All this to say that there's a sequence of how we do it. And then we put them on what we call their small instruments. Their small instruments would be like the flute head joint, brasses on their mouthpieces, the mouthpiece in the barrel or the mouthpiece in the neck, depending on the instrument. And we take them through various important things that they need to know on their instrument. And then we teach them about tonguing. So the whole curriculum is here, and the curriculum is aligned with the startup clinics as well on Habits Universal. So all this can be done online, every bit of this. And then we give some teacher tips here for French horns, some things about oboes. We talk about that F dilemma, and we're telling the teacher when to use the forked left and right, but for the students, it's marked in the book. And we give some breathing exercise. Anyway, the first 24 pages are valuable to the book, and you could literally take that, and it's embedded in the online piece already, and it really could be instruction for them. The other thing is, when you think about what mindset should teachers have during this COVID-19 time, First of all, this is perfect for a flipped model of instruction where you can do pre-recorded lessons, and we give you the resources to use for pre-recorded lessons. We have some of our teachers who are, they're literally making assignments with the students, and they are doing videos at night and having the students watch the videos at night and have the students practice along with the teacher on their primary instrument. And then when they get online the next day, they have the students mute themselves, but they still have them play. And then they call them individual students, because they should have practiced the night before. So a flipped model is really great for that. I'm going to remind me, Nick, to go back at the very end and talk about that pathway to success thing.
Okay.
It just popped into my head. So
okay.
But the other thing is using the section model or the private lesson model. This is perfect, especially when the students have the ability to watch those videos that are on Habits Universal and they can keep going back and reviewing them. And even the basics like, how do I put the instrument together? How do I tone on the instrument? They can keep watching those videos so you can reinforce those things on Habits Universal. If you don't want to do Habits Universal, there are teachers who are using Flipgrid. Now, the negative of Flipgrid, the positive of Flipgrid is that they can use video. The negative is the teacher has to then sit and listen to all the videos and use the rubric and all that. So it takes a lot more time with Flipgrid, where Habits Universal Interactive, it's just like that. The students get the feedback, the grade goes in the grade book, and it's really cool. The other thing I would just simply say is this is the time where we literally can teach students to conduct basic music theory things, and some things that we have built into this and other things that we're going to keep adding in. Zoom master classes, where you get outside people to come in, maybe your local symphony player to come in and do a master class for the students, especially if you've got them divided up into sections. To me, it's really cool that we're in this environment where we really could do some things that before we used to say, no, we never had time to do that. Yeah. But it's really cool that we have the opportunity to kind of think outside of the box. I think, we have the opportunity to explore some things in different ways that really could be awesome. And I was going to jump back to that pathway to success thing. So yeah, one of the things that I think, we're in the music business and the people business, and it's really important that we connect with our students right now. So there are two things that I would say, and it depends on what level you teach in terms of the direction that I'm going with this. When I was at Wando High School, we had a 97% retention rate for 10 years, and over a 97% retention rate. And one of the reasons I believe, we had great music making happening, but we also did something called freshman interviews. And I would bring every freshman or person who was new to the program into my office, 15-minute interview on Wednesday afternoons. And I would always start the interview by saying, if we're going to spend 4 years together, I really want to get to know you. And I would ask them questions like, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Where do you see yourself 10 years from now? Who's your favorite musical artist? What's the best vacation you've ever taken with your family? I'd do all about me assignments with them. I would, ask them to fill those out, and they would take them back up. And so in COVID-19, I think one of the things that's really happened is we've lost connection with our tribe. Matter of fact, my son's in the 10th grade and he's in band. He literally said about a month ago, I miss the tribe. It's the way you described it. It's kind of interesting. So in addition to that, Tim Lotzenheiser and I wrote a book together it was released back in December. It's called Pathway to Success. And we had some directors who used Pathway to Success during COVID-19, and they really found that it really helped them connect with their students. So Tim and I decided that we're going to do a 12-week course that is, part of it's for teachers and part of it's for students. So the student part is we're creating 12 videos that are on things like communication, attitude, honesty, integrity, trust, emotional health, cooperation, building relationships, creating a moonshot. just, things that are tangible that we can say that we're investing in young people. And we think it's really important. And then in addition to that, in addition to like giving you content to use with your students, we're also going to meet on Sunday evenings and do a Zoom meeting of just the teachers. And we're really going to have discussions on like, how's it going? What do we need to do to keep watering the plant? What can we do to help you reconnect with your students even more? So we want to build a community, a pathway to success community. And we also want to give some free resources to teachers. We're going to also send out some questions with those videos. So if you want to pose the questions with your students, kind of as a discussion, but the teacher can use the video however they want to. One of the teachers, Nick, I think I was telling you about this. He did a Zoom meeting with his students every Tuesday and Thursday, and he recorded it and sent it back to me. And on one of the lessons, one of the trombone players said to him, he said, "Man, this is great stuff. You should do a blog or something." Mm-hmm. And we kind of laughed about that. And when the whole thing was over, I asked the band director, I said, what did you learn through this process? And he said, I learned that I could be vulnerable with my students. They could see me for who I really was. I could communicate with them that I really cared about them, but I could tangibly say, these are the things that we worked on. He said, I realized the process that I was kind of consumed with shorter, longer, louder, softer, in tune, out of tune, getting ready for my next performance. And this was really a way for me to say, we're working on these people skills because I want to make an investment in you, because I want you to be the best the best you that you can be. And he found that to be just amazing, the process to be amazing. He felt like it was in many ways the first time that he truly connected. So I think during this COVID-19 time that's really important.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, one of the things I'm just so impressed with is how much content and curriculum you have available that doesn't involve a student having an instrument in their hands. Mm-hmm. Because we're obviously working with a lot of beginning teachers and middle school directors, and some of them are taking the stance of, hey, let me start with instruments in October. Let's kind of let the dust settle, see how everything goes. But you've got a great deal of content for them to continue working on the musician, even though they don't have the instrument in their hands. And I think that's a great thing. It's not lost time. They can continue to progress just with a different track.
Absolutely. And I will tell you that, Jeff and I are having discussions about how they're starting at his school. And, he's like, from the rhythm vocabulary standpoint, he said, my students are going to be counting like fiends by January, because we're going to be working on rhythm vocabulary. We're going to have them singing. We're going to be, all the different resources that we have available as well. So I appreciate you saying that, because I do think that is absolutely true.
Yeah, that's great. So, Scott, we just have about 10 more minutes, and I want to trade gears a little bit, or change gears a little bit, because you're such an accomplished educator. You've been doing this a long time. And of course, you don't necessarily have a school address this upcoming year, but I know you're staying really in touch with everything that's going on. So assuming that you were going to be teaching this year back at Wando High School, how would you be approaching this school year with your students and as an educator?
Well, yeah, I think some of those things that we just talked about in COVID-19, like the flip model and the pathway to success and the pre-recorded lessons and, bringing in all those people that you normally wouldn't bring in. I really think that's kind of the mindset. I will tell you this too, to kind of jump back to something that we talked about earlier. I said that the series is based on the components of playing, that whole timing, tuning, tone, technique, balance, building. In the beginner book, we really zeroed in on those first 6, which were the 4 T's: timing, tuning, tone, technique, and then balance and blend. And we give the teachers the resources through the the teacher tips that we have on each exercise to show them how to zero in on those things. And that includes the concepts prior to playing the instrument, or at least playing the full instrument itself. And all that's in the conductor's edition in those first 24 pages that we looked at. So I really think that all those strategies that we just talked about are things that teachers can use. And, it's going to be really interesting to see, because some people a few people are doing face-to-face. Most people are doing a hybrid model where they go to school, a couple of days and they're at home. Maybe they go to school 2 days and they're at home 3 days. How that's going to look like. I think we're truly going to treasure those times when we actually just have students in front of us and we're making music, whether it's, part of the students or all the students. I think we're going to treasure that.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, Scott, do you have any just closing thoughts or advice you'd like to offer for our listeners right now?
Well, let me say this first. If people would like to reach me, they can contact me at my email address is srush0, the number 0, at yahoo.com, or they can go to habitsofsuccess.com. And by the way, habitsofsuccess.com down at the bottom of the page has even additional teacher resources that they can just use for free. They can also go to habitsuniversal.com and go to contact us on that tab, and they can contact me that way as well. So if they have any questions about anything that we've talked about today, feel free to reach out. And I really believe that we're going to have a renaissance of sorts when we kind of all get back together. I think this whole COVID-19 thing, I think it's going to bring us closer together. I think it's going to make us stronger. I think that the pandemic will cause us to have a profound appreciation for each other and the collaborative process of music making, and just, not only the collaborative process of music making, but the depth of music making, because we get to do it together. And it's my hope that this beginner band method, will serve as a resource that will help teachers, be more effective in building better young musicians, and in simple terms, building better bands.
Yeah, that's great. Now, Scott, one more time, just for anybody that didn't have a pen, and that's very gracious of you to share your contact information. Can you share your email address just one more time?
Sure. It's S as in Scott, srush0, the number 0, at yahoo.com, or they can reach me through habitsofsuccess.com or habitsuniversal.com.
That's great. And for our podcast listeners, we will be sure to put all of this, if you're driving or something, we will put this on our website, amromusic.com/after hours. So we'll be sure to link to Scott's email address there. So anybody looking for it at a later date will be able to find it. So, well, Scott, listen, I really appreciate so much of a little bit of your time today. So much everything that you've shared with us. I think this is a wonderful book, a wonderful series that you and your team have created, and we're having a hard time keeping it in stock at Amro. I mean, we just see educators really embracing it and utilizing it. In fact, I want to give a special shout out. Last week we had Terry Green, who's the middle school band director at Olive Branch Middle School, and we were given a little snippet of this week, and she held the book up and was waving around on the webinar. She had just gotten the brand new beginner band book, and she was just so excited to be utilizing it in her classroom. So she's joining us tonight. So Terry, hello, thanks for joining us, and thanks for sharing that excitement last week.
That's awesome. That's totally.
Yeah. So again, for everyone joining us, we're so glad that you were able to come and participate. Scott, thank you so much. Bravo for everything that you're doing. We really appreciate it. Again, everything we've talked about, we're going to link to the website. We're going to put Scott's email address at amromusic.com/after hours. So if you're listening on a podcast or you're listening after this has been recorded, you can find everything that we've talked about tonight on our website. So as a quick reminder, we're going to take a little break, a little hiatus from After Hours, and we'll fire it back up in October. We look forward to having you join us then. So in the meantime, Scott, thank you so much. Everybody, please stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, and we look forward to seeing you in October for After Hours Conversations for Music Educators. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott.